Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special episode of End Zone Scoop with me, Liz Bandari, and my amazing co-hosts Dayna O'Gorman and Shona Duffy. Now, it's a big week for two reasons. One, it's the draft kicking off tonight, and Dayna, you'll be there. Oh, not tonight. Tomorrow night. Tomorrow night. I got the days mixed up.
Okay.
Yeah, you're there. But we're gonna get into that properly shortly. Friday, I'm heading to Scotland for Shona's hen do. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to watch the draft while we're there because I don't think the other people appreciate it. But
No,
ladies, how are you both?
three
It's
people.
been a
We
minute.
three people on that hen do would like it. That's me, you, and Andy's cousin Louise, and that would be it.
So Louise will be the bestie. That's fine.
Yeah, but she's a Cardinals fan, so we have to direct her in a better direction, for next season.
How are you, Dayna?
Well, I had quite the morning. So
yes,
so as you guys know, the NFL draft is in Kansas City this year, and this is where I live in Kansas City. Last year, I had to travel to Vegas to cover the draft, but luckily I get to sleep in my own bed this time, so I'm very happy about that. And today they've had a few community events throughout the week, but today was the first media availability with the draft prospects. And so they had this great Play 60 event, which for those of you maybe who don't know, Play 60 is a charity organization that gets kids into football really young, and they play flag football and they do drills, and it's a great event. And so they had their first, and so all of the draft prospects that are here in town for the draft, there was a couple missing, which I thought was interesting, but but they all went out, and then we all got to chat with them. And so I posted those videos over on Twitter, and it's just it's a nice way for them, the draft prospects, to kind of decompress before the craziness of tomorrow. And I talked to a couple of them about that. And so, emotions are high. And so this is like, they get to, I was talking to Will Anderson, and I said, which, sounds like me, but I was talking to Will Anderson, and I said, how's it feel to play these kids? He goes, well, I was one of these kids just a few years ago. And I'm like, oh yeah. They're all so young, but it was great. It was a lot of fun this morning. But so now I'm here, and now I get to prep for the start of the draft tomorrow, and having a house full of people, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
It must be so much more because over here it's quite difficult to watch because it's always overnight. I mean, I always try and watch the Thursday night because I think the Thursday night is the best night. It's the first round. All the top prospects go. It was quite interesting to see how the teams will then develop throughout the draft, into the second, third, fourth, fifth rounds or the weekend. But you're kind of in your own house 9 times out of 10, in your big blanket hoodie, your hoodie, keeping warm, and your cat's meowing at you because you want some food. I guess you guys have a more fun occasion than we do over here.
Yeah, it is. So the draft is an event, and it's become bigger and bigger. And for years, it was just at Radio City Music Hall in New York. And if you got tickets, you got tickets. Great. If not, too bad. But now it's become this huge, monstrous 3-day event where they have basically like a carnival set up outside of it, and they have everything. They have a concert every single night afterward. They have, ex-players coming to sign autographs. They have all the Super Bowl rings. They have the Lombardi trophies. They have, it's this whole thing. There's this whole section where kids and adults can run the 40-yard dash. They can kick a field goal. They can throw a Hail Mary and see if someone can catch it. They have all of these great interactive things. And then Kansas City, one thing about this town is we focus a lot on food here. Kansas City barbecue is thing, right? So they have 20 food trucks set up, and it's just become this whole thing. So it's a lot of fun. As a media member, I don't get to see a lot of that, especially the first night. We are back in the media room and then the press conference room and the green rooms. And so we're busy with that because the prospects are there for the first round. But a lot of times when you go back for the second round, you really only, if there's any prospects left over, which is always heartbreaking if they're there day 2, but if they're there, then if they're not there, then you can kind of go out and enjoy it a little bit more and talk to some fans. So it's going to be, it's last year in Vegas was crazy, but at the same time, it was very well contained. It was, they kept security, was very tight because it was Vegas, right? There was nothing homey about it. This year, when you go and walk around down by Union Station, down by where they're having this, it feels very homey, very more open and relaxed. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
And how many years have you been doing this now, Dayna?
This is my second year at the draft. Of course, I did multiple years at the Pro Bowl prior to that. For our turf football, we have someone that covers almost every single major event. And then a lot of the the Senior Bowl and the Tropical Bowl and those, kind of all-star games that they have. We have that too. So we're really lucky. We feel very lucky to be able to do this and to go in. And it's a great way to meet, other people, other media people from around the country and around the world sometimes. Yeah. And so that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, it's getting to the point now where you walk into a room and I recognize people, and that's weird to me because I was just the fan for so long, so it's a little strange. Yeah.
Well, college football is huge in the States. It's growing massively in the UK as well. Mm-hmm. But from what I understand from whenever I see it, it feels like it's bigger than the NFL, right? Certainly stadium wise, it's ridiculously big.
So I've only had 2 experiences of college games. When I went over to the States a good few years ago when I did my wee mini college NFL tour. I also threw in a bit of ice hockey in there as well, but not as fun. I can't believe Michigan, they're not even I wouldn't even say they're one of they are obviously they're huge. Ann Arbor on game day is insane, but I wouldn't even say that they're in one of the top 10 fan bases of college football. Ohio State, on the other hand, my God, they eat, breathe, sleep, and do everything Ohio State football. It is ridiculous, that rivalry, but you can totally see just the difference between them. And I think the way it works for college football is it's on a Saturday, so it works very well. There's a long history of college football. It's a long rivalry. You're not actually cherry picking your players either. I mean, you are from high school, but these guys are getting to build who they are through college. Your head coach stays there a long time. In Michigan, they were we got our Harbaugh. We don't need any Detroit Lions. Who cares about them? And I'm okay, cool. I'm so you don't fight. You don't fall Detroit then? They're no. Michigan's our team. And I'm okay, this is totally a different feel to me because we don't really have that sort of thing over here in the UK. It's normally you like your Premier League teams, you like your Scottish Premiership teams or your home team. But for them, it's where they either went to college or where they were brought up in college, it's really fun to go watch. I would say between the two, I obviously went to Michigan State, and I went to Washington State.
You went to the good games.
Yeah, Washington State. That was honestly, I couldn't believe it. I went to the game, and obviously their stadium is right next to the lake in Washington. And they were all on their boats partying. They had all these yachts and boats, and they're come on the boat and party with us. It's the Washington State game. And I'm where am I? I'm is this for real? Are you guys going to the game? They're no, we're just going to party here.
Well, they probably couldn't get tickets anyway. Apple Cup is one of the hardest ones to get. They call it the Apple Cup, obviously, because Washington State grows a lot of apples, so that's what they do. But here's the only way that I can kind of describe it is take your biggest Premier League rivalry, right? For those of you who don't understand, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Man United, Liverpool. Liverpool.
Times that probably by 10. When it comes to NFL rivalries, your NFL fandoms, you can argue and you can hate and you can say that San Francisco sucks and all of that kind of stuff. You can do that. But when it comes to college ball, I think the biggest difference is it's so personal. This is not just I like the Chiefs and you like the Broncos. That's not what we're talking about here. This is where I went to college. This is my home. This is where my children will go to college. This is where my dad went to college. I'm a 10-year, whatever it may be. And I am here to hate every student that ever went to your school. So these football rivalries, they're huge. And you're right. The stadiums are bigger. And we talk about NFL stadiums and they hold 70,000 people. Sorry, there's multiple college stadiums that hold over 100,000. And it's just because it's just that big. The funny thing is is that there are people who can watch college ball and they're looking for draftees. Like they're looking for the next level. You know, they're looking for that to come up. But as Shona said, there's a whole lot. And I think probably a majority of college football fans that don't give two craps about the NFL. They love their college and that is it. It's serious.
Yeah, it's actually like almost like it's not like a cult, but it's like a religion. It's like every Saturday they're like, all right, I get up at 9 and I make my French bread and I'm going to go at the tailgate and I'm going to drink some Fireball and then I'm going to go see my kid play the pipe band and that's what I'm going to do.
Crazy. It's crazy.
And then watch some football. But it's quite fun to be. It was so fun to be around being a person from the UK because we don't have anything like that over here to compare to like at all. Yeah. And I think I always say to people, if you're going to go to the States and watch an NFL game, you have to go to a college game. Like you have to go to that part because you'll think NFL is amazing, but the college game is like on another level. And those 2 Saturdays were like the best 2 Saturdays I think I had when I was over there. They were just insane.
Yeah, definitely needs to make that trip.
And go to both of those games because they're the best too.
Rivalry. Oh, I don't know. You got some of those SEC games too. Ooh, rivalry week is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't know if I would go to Michigan Ohio State game. That just seems a bit too scary to me.
That's the best one.
Yeah, I can imagine it is the best one, but it honestly seems petrifying because they were literally just like, yeah, we don't like Michigan State, but goddamn those Ohio. And I'm like, what? I'm like,
it's true.
So let's focus on the draft then. Why don't we start off with talking about, I guess, some of the best players on defense? Like, who wants to start there?
Well, you know, I love myself some good defense, right? So, really, there is
one I've got my eye on as well. Earlier, I noticed Dayna.
Which one would that be? Could that be Mr. Jalen Carter? Is that who you're talking about? Oh my God, that's so shocking. I did talk to Jalen Carter earlier today. So what's interesting is that there's been a lot of focus on quarterbacks, obviously, for good reason. I mean, the quarterbacks. I mean, there's never been 4 quarterbacks before. Totally possible. One thing we have to remember about this draft, ladies, is that this is probably the most up in the air draft that we've had in a long time. People are assuming Bryce Young is going to go first, but don't be surprised if they take CJ Stroud first. And so there's like all of this going on. Will Arizona take, will the Texans take a quarterback? Yes, please take a quarterback. They really need one, but I mean, they also need some defense.
I'll talk about that in a minute.
I know we're going to. So it's very up in the air, but there's really 2 to 3 names that are really being focused on for that kind of top 5-ish, maybe to 7 to 8 player picks, and that is Jalen Carter out of Georgia, and then you have Will Anderson, who freaking fell in love with today. That kid is so nice and so smart, and he's going to go way before 5, and it's going to break my heart. And so Will Anderson, and then we also have Tyree Wilson is the other one that is a lot of people are talking about. Now there's a couple cornerbacks. You have Witherspoon as a quarterback and a few others that people are talking maybe top 10, that sort of thing. But these defensive players, it's pretty good depth in this draft. But really, how those 3 are going to kind of start to fall will be really interesting. The question has been put out there a lot, does Arizona give up pick number 3? So because their entire team is a giant need, so they need as many draft picks as they can get. Will a quarterback hungry team, bump up? Or will they sit and wait? You have, a few that could sit there. But for defense, really, the focus is going to be on those 3 players, I think, to begin with.
And hopefully one of them is still available at 5.
Okay, so here's the deal. As most of you guys know, that all 3 of us are Seahawks fans, but Shona, I want to ask you. So what happens if Will Anderson and Jalen Carter are both there at 5? Who do you take? I know.
I think they go. I think they go Jalen Carter over Will Anderson. To be honest, I know he's. I think that's where they're looking at. I think that's from looking at all the the mock drafts. people have all said that Seattle are going to go defense because they've just gave, you know, Gino a new deal. They still have Drew Lock as their backup QB. They're probably not looking
not that high for a quarterback. Yeah. Later on.
Draft that high for a quarterback. I think they will draft a quarterback, but I think it'll be later on. And I think, to be honest, I think it's going to be Carter that they go for.
So for go ahead. I was just going to say, for those who don't know, Jalen Carter, if you haven't been following, Jalen Carter has a little bit of an issue coming into this draft. So he is considered the most talented player in this draft, but he had a little bit of legal trouble at the beginning of the year, turned out to be nothing. And so it was just a very sad situation. So they let that go. But then he didn't really do much at the combine. And then his pro day, he bombed his pro day. It was so bad. He was 9 pounds overweight, couldn't finish his drill, was cramping. And I will tell you, I saw him today. He looked in great shape. And so I think that maybe there was something else going on there. But there seems to be some motivation questions when it comes to Jalen Carter, right? That he sometimes takes plays off, that he's not like super motivated to work his hardest. Where then you go into Will Anderson. Will Anderson is maybe considered not quite as talented, but he's consistent. He's fantastic. He's a leader. He knows exactly, you know, what he needs to do. He puts it all in all the time. I'm the opposite. If they're both sitting there at 5 Shona, I'm taking Will Anderson all day long. Even though I like Carter, and I'm hoping they get him because I really think Will Anderson is probably going to be gone before then, but it will be interesting to see what happens there. So, and then there is Wilson, who is also very talented, just doesn't necessarily fit the scheme for Seattle, but fits the scheme for so many other teams. So it'll be interesting to see if someone maybe pops up to grab him, if there's hints that another team will.
I think what's interesting as well is that Carter actually visited with Seattle already. So I think they're kind of hoping that, we'll just have to wait. You know, you always think Pete's going to go one way, and then he ends up doing his weird cat gif, and you're like, no idea what you're on about, Pete. Let's just see what you do.
The draft clues. They're great.
They're great, but I never understand them. He's like, oh, this is what my draft clue meant. And I'm like, no, it didn't.
But I think most importantly, though, we have to look at those quarterback needy teams. If they're going to jump, if they're going to come up and grab, maybe if the quarterbacks only go 1-2, and then we're not talking about offense yet, but Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, they're still sitting there. Or it makes you wonder if CJ Stroud, the quarterback, should slip a little bit. Will someone come up to get him? So after those first couple picks, hopefully we will see how that falls. That it's going to really, I will tell you, if CJ Stroud is sitting there after the two other quarterbacks go, it's going to be a fast, furious situation of someone to come up and grab him.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of ties into what my next point is, in that the fact that there's rumors swirling, which I cannot believe this is actually a thing, that the Texans are actually considering not taking a quarterback. I'm a bit confused about it. Basically, there's been a few draft analysts like Lance Zierlein and Adam Schaefer who are basically among the notion that the Texans aren't that sold on drafting a quarterback at position 2. Lance said that if they miss out on Young, they're not an exact lock to take CJ Stroud. I don't know why. And then you had Adam Schaefer saying that he wasn't yet convinced that the Texans are going to take a quarterback with their second pick, especially if Young goes to Carolina. So it feels like the Texans were kind of all in the basket to go get Young. But obviously Lovey was like, hold on, I'm going to win my last game, so you can't get the top pick. That'll be fun for you guys. But I mean, if they don't go for a quarterback, I'm kind of curious as to where they would go. I mean, obviously the Texans have a massive need across their whole team because of how badly they finished last year, but they're in a prime position to get a quarterback and get a quarterback who could be the face of that franchise and build around. And I'm kind of confused as to where they would go if they did not go down that road of getting a quarterback.
We have to remember they also have the 12th pick, right?
Yeah, but I mean, no,
listen to me. Listen to me for a minute. So if you have to remember that they make phone calls, watch Draft Day. They call each other all the time, right? And so
I love that film. Love that film.
So they come in and they make phone calls to each other, and they have a temperature on, okay, well, let's say if they don't get Bryce Young, who's like 5'9" and a half and 185 pounds. He's talented, but he didn't get broken. So anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. But let's say they were all in on Young. All of a sudden, the Panthers don't want their perfect pocket passer that they would get in CJ Stroud. They want Lamar Jackson Jr., right? And so they go after him. And Anthony Richardson, who also interviewed today, very nice kid, very smart, only had 13 starts in college. So there's some question there, right? And all of a sudden he starts to drop. Do the Texans then take one of these two truly, generational talents at defense between Will Anderson and Jalen Carter, or even Wilson? I know there's a couple teams who are sold on Wilson, right? And then use that 12th pick, pop up a couple, and turn around and still get one of the top 4 quarterbacks. That would be the freaking heist of the century for the Texans. It's just whether or not.
Do you think they're that clever though? Because I don't know if they are.
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I would assume so. Their new head coach is certainly definitely, clever enough. So we'll see.
Yeah, very true.
And so maybe they're okay with waiting back. Maybe they really like Hendon Hooker. We can't forget about Hendon Hooker, quarterback for Tennessee. Thing with Hendon Hooker is that he's older and they're very ageist when it comes to the draft. And so, he's already 25 years old, God forbid 25, but he's older and just coming off an ACL, but he has put out videos over the last couple of days. He looks fantastic. And I have heard many analysts say he is the most true NFL ready quarterback that's out there. It's just that he had this injury history and that sort of thing. So maybe they're like, screw it. We want Hooker and we know no one's going to take him before 12. So then they get 2 great. But at the same time, I don't know that the fan base would tolerate that very well, but they keep insisting, and every team does, they do not draft for the fans. They draft for need. And so it's plausible. Do I think it'll happen? No. I still think they take a quarterback high just to make sure no one jumps up and grabs them, in front of them. But it's possible. And if that happens, we are screwed at 5. I'm just saying that. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we absolutely are. If they, I'll be like saying with bated breath when it says the pick is in, I'll be like, oh my God.
I hate being in the media room when that happens because I just have to sit there. I can't have any emotion. So I'm just like this. So when they picked Charles Cross last year, I was like, yes. And the guy sitting next to me, he's like, nice job. It was real cute. It was real cute.
It's like me when I'm covering Aberdeen games, and I did the Ross County game a couple weeks ago, and we scored, and I went,
That's all you can do. Zip it.
And then the guy next to me was like, Aberdeen fan? I was like, maybe.
No, I don't know what you speak
no,
of.
No, it was a wee squeal. Mouse pass.
I'm laughing at a video. It's a dog video on TikTok, whatever. But yeah. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting. But where there lies some interest is really as you move down the first round, right? So some of these offensive tackles, there's a couple of fantastic centers that are there that a really center needy team could bump up for. This is a fantastic tight end class. And so if you look at the tight ends, it's like, okay, what do we do here? Then you have the cornerbacks. There's Witherspoon, you have Gonzalez, there's all of these other cornerbacks. And maybe some team will prioritize those over the wide receiver class, which isn't as strong. There's a couple. Zay Flowers really is kind of the biggest wide receiver there. And then you have Bijan Robinson, who was hilarious with the children today. That kid is a kid at heart. He's great. But he, is a running back. And running back, the position has been devalued to a certain extent, unless a team that already has everything else in place and just needs a run game. And so it's going to be, I think the first round is next to impossible to predict right now. You can predict probably what players, but to where and when, hell if I know. Yeah, I got asked today by another media member, so who does Bryce Young play for? And everyone around me is like, Panthers. I'm like, I think he's going to end up with the Texans. I still cannot get over the fact that the Panthers would skip on CJ Stroud. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I feel as well. It was quite interesting because I feel like a few months before the draft, it was very much like it's QB heavy. Top 5 picks are going to be quarterback, and I like how the defensive side, because Dayna, you love the defense. I know you do. I do love defense too. To be fair, it's very fun. That they've kind of come into their own, and they've started going way up the draft picks, and like obviously Seattle completely changed that rhetoric as well. When I know I keep talking about Seattle, but they because they're in the top 5. They changed that rhetoric because they did that deal with Geno, and they're obviously like, we don't need a quarterback. We've got our guy. We believe in Geno. Like, we'll maybe draft further down the line. We don't need to build a new franchise around a young guy. We're building already, and what we need is like little picks. So I feel like it's quite exciting because that's totally throwing the curveball of like being like, well, here's how it's going to go. The draft guys were like, we're done for the year. We don't need to tell you anything more. And then they're like, actually, oh my God, here's my other 12 million zillion draft picks.
What's interesting, I think too, and Liz, I think that this is something that you'll understand, that you have to keep an eye on the teams that don't have a first round pick. Miami, San Francisco, LA. There's a few teams that don't have first round pick. Denver. They
jump
don't have,
up.
Right. Well, LA, the Rams have nothing. They have nothing to play with. They're just going to sit back and take their.
I don't know what they were like. We won the Super Bowl.
We're going to sell everything now. But I think that one thing that we have to keep in mind is those teams, because there are some players that they could really want. So they could sell the farm, and we saw how well that worked out for the Rams. But they could do it to move up, and if that happens, that shifts everything, because. That also shifts in the second round, because we're not just talking about the first round here. Yeah. They might not want to pay the price for a first round pick because that gets very expensive, but they might happily pay a price for a second round pick, and that's not near as expensive. And so the beginning of day 2 could be really interesting too, just because there could be a lot of shuffling really quick.
Yeah, I think that's always fascinating when you see that kind of stuff happen. To me, I think that's probably one of the things that makes the draft so exciting. Like, it doesn't matter what happens, like, expect the unexpected when I think it comes to the draft.
You really have to. And then what that does for the fan bases is then you have these new players, and ignore the rankings or the grades. Oh, the draft grades, whatever. Shut up. Nobody knows until these kids are on the field. But what's interesting then is what that does for the fan base. So I always think Sunday is the decompression day, right? And then you can actually go in and say, okay, I actually need to watch film on this 5th round pick, Tariq Woolen, that we didn't know who you were. And will you make an impact, right? Well, it's happened. What do you think about the Patriots fans when they picked up Tom Brady? They didn't think they were going to have anything there. Do you know what I mean? So
Michael Dixon in round 7, everyone's like, who's this kid? Yeah. Well, he's a good kicker. That's who this kid is.
Right. And so that happens for every team. So it's not just those first couple of rounds, although those are going to be your more blue chip players. But I just think that it's interesting on Sunday to be like, okay, look at the haul that your team got. The Jets last year, those Jets fans must have been ecstatic. And I'm very impressed we haven't said the words AR yet in this podcast. So I'm very proud of you, ladies. But so the Jets fans.
I don't swear on Wednesdays, Liz, Dayna. Sorry.
It's fair. I think that's fair. Wednesdays, only on Wednesdays.
But only on Wednesdays.
Yeah. So I think that's really fun on Sundays to really kind of go in and analyze these kids and to see if the trades, I mean, heck, your team might have only started out with 7 picks and ended up with 10, and that's a huge haul. So, and supposedly this year's undrafted free agent class, they expect to be big and good. So it's just really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You're quite good on the time difference. So, like, what time does it start in the US to what time does it start here in the UK?
So, it starts local time. Kansas City is in Central Time, which is 1 hour behind Eastern for those who keep track of the Eastern time zone. And so it starts at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time. So 7 p.m. here is, let's see, what is that? 1 o'clock in the morning for you guys. So you could stay up a little bit and watch at least the first few picks. That would be fun.
I mean, I'm going to stay up till 5.
Oh, you silly rabbit. You're right ahead.
Stay up until we've picked ours. Well, actually, I might turn off if Texans take them, and I'll just be like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah. So it'll be very fun. But I do feel bad for you guys. But you can always watch on Saturday, picks rounds 4 through 7, because those are done during the day. So that's good.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they happen.
You'll be busy. You'll be busy henning, whatever.
They're too busy clucking about, I'm afraid.
For sure. That is fun.
I love how you guys don't call it a hen, you call it
Bachelorette.
Yeah, we're like, I don't know why we call it hens,
Because we call it
because you're weird. No, just kidding.
The men get stagged like a galleon, and we get clucking.
And we have lost the plot. So as we do
there, Dayna.
As we do on this show regularly. So that's awesome. And then after the draft, it gets into the quiet time of the NFL. And you wait for rookie camp, and you wait for, rookie camp, wait for mini camp. You do all those little things. Nothing really happens. There might be a few more trades. That June 1st deadline for a lot of players. Sometimes there can be cuts right around then because it does save the team money if it's post June 1st, pre June 1st. And so kind of keep an eye on that. And then we got a couple months till Shona's wedding, and then boom, we're in training camp. Done.
And also we have Bobby back.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Bobby Wagner is back. Yes, that's very exciting. It is very exciting. Cool.
Didn't suit him in that color.
No, he looks much better in dark blue.
He looks much better, much more handsome.
Which makes you think. Speaking of blue, like, are you sorted on that front for the wedding, Shona?
Yes.
My shoes are blue.
I was gonna say she's gonna wear a Bobby Wagner jersey, so it's fine, right?
Just over the top of the dress.
Right.
Hey guys.
Actually, no. My shoes have got like a blue sole. Yeah, I'm wearing trainers because I was like, I'm not wearing heels on my wedding day.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I wore.
Don't blame.
I was like, I'm up all day. My mom's like, you can't wear heels. And I'm like, absolutely not.
Mm-mm.
Nah. Maybe down like Danielle if you really want to. Over that, no. No one can see anyway.
Exactly. No one will see it anyway. Enough about weddings. It's all about draft week.
Well, I'm definitely gonna watch draft day either tonight or tomorrow. I think.
I love draft day. I love the line when she's like, I have to work harder more than most of all you men with penises. So she should say.
I've watched it once. I hate Kevin Costner, so I don't watch it very often. So
I know. I try to imagine it's not him because I'm also not a fan of Kevin Costner.
And they don't like they're mean to my team, so I don't like that so much.
They mix Seattle out to be like a real crock of rubbish, and also I'm like, we didn't pick Johnny Manziel, you guys did. Don't turn it out.
Funny. Well, I hope everyone enjoys it, and I hope that whoever's team whatever team you root for, they end up getting. I would say if you get one player that you really wanted, then the whole draft is kind of gravy after that.
Yeah, definitely.
Dayna will be done if we draft Will Anderson.
Done. Or Jalen Carter. I'll be like, I'm good. I'm going home now. You guys can have my first.
You're good. Enjoy your day. See you later.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, ladies, as always, it's great to chat. To anyone who is live with us or going to watch the replay, make sure you're following us on Twitter. We are at Endzone Scoop. So yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.